Hey everyone, it's Jeannie for Scrapbook.com, and today I am sharing a super easy birthday card with you. For the card, I will be using the Uptown numbers die, the tall skinny alphabet in lower, and then the stamp set I'm using is a recipe card maker along with the jewel smooth cardstock. Now you may be looking at the recipe card maker stamp set and think you're making a birthday card. It's for recipe cards. But whenever I have stamps or I make that investment to purchase a stamp, I like to be able to stretch it, using it for different purposes, and that's what we're doing today. We will be using that stamp set that is used for a recipe card maker to create a very subtle background for my birthday card. I will be using the largest image in my MISTI, and I line it up on my mouse pad in my MISTI. It works because the lines are exactly 1/4 of an inch from each other. The lines in the mouse pad are the same, so that will help me stamp the image on my card panel and then allow me to shift my cardstock to stamp the rest of it. As you can see, that image only covers about 1/4 of the card panel, so I will have to go back a second time. So for my card panel, I do stamp with Versamark ink and I cover up the ink using Hero Art's Satin Pearl embossing powder. I decided to use Satin Pearl because I wanted a very subtle background. Other colors like white or black or even silver are a little bit more bold, and I really just wanted something that kind of works more for a tone-on-tone look, and this achieves it. So as you can see, I shifted my cardstock over. I will be able to stamp those lines on the remaining part of my card panel, and this will create a subtle background of all these lines on the card panel. When I was doing this, I did think that maybe this was a little too plain, so I decided to stamp a grid. And how I'll be doing that is I will just be flipping my card panel around and doing the exact same thing, stamping those lines again, just in the other direction. So there are so many different ways that you can use this stamp set to create different patterns on your cardstock. You can also stamp it diagonally and use different colors if you wanted. For today's card, I wanted to create that subtle background because without it, a card with just a die cut sentiment would look pretty plain. When I do have a bold sentiment that I want to stand out, my go-tos are usually tone on tone or heat embossing in clear. But since this is a celebratory card, a birthday card, I thought that the Satin Pearl would just add that subtle sheen that doesn't steal your attention away from the sentiment. To pair with my card panel, I pulled out this burnt orange from the Jewels cardstock. I cut it down to an A2 card panel. I used the remaining amount of cardstock to use for the sentiments. So I backed it using the Scrapbook.com double-sided adhesive. This roll is amazing and it's huge, and I really like it for intricate dies as well as small dies because the backing is kind of thick. So when you run it through the die cut machine, it cuts through your paper but doesn't cut through the backing. All your dies are kind of held in place until you need it. It kind of turns it into a sticker, and then you can just easily remove it and then put onto your project, and you won't lose it while you're crafting. Because I don't know about you, but for me, when I craft, I lose a bunch of things, just things get shuffled around. This just makes it really easy. For the sentiment, I am just going with the happy birthday. I know that the tall, skinny alphabets come in the uppercase and the lowercase, but I have a tendency to prefer the lowercase for my sentiments. I just like them a little bit more. Of course, if you like to be more formal and you want the capital H and B, you can do that. As an additional benefit for having my subtle background pattern be a grid, it allows me to put these words down straight. I'm able to use that grid to line everything up perfectly, and I have it on my A2 card panel that just says happy birthday. So you'll notice that I cut it in 2 different cardstocks, one in white and one in that burnt orange. And I only did this because I wanted to stack my sentiment because I wanted to add extra dimension. Sometimes with cards, especially for sentiment heavy cards, you really want the recipient to pull focus to the sentiment, and by adding that dimension, you really do. So I'm happy with how it turned out with the stacking. It is super subtle, but I thought that it would be a little bit more fun to add some glitter into the mix. This is where I pulled out the Mixed Metals glitter paper. I pulled out a lighter gold originally, but then I decided to go with the darker gold. I thought it just fit with the colors a little bit better, and it's just that extra subtle touch that I needed. So I die cut the number 40 because I have more friends that are turning 40 than any other age right now. This will go into my birthday stash and it would work for almost anyone. unless they really hated the colors that I used. I also cut the 4 and the 0 on white cardstocks just so I could stack that up a little bit more, and I placed it right in the middle between the words happy birthday. I ended up trimming my card panel to 3.5 by 5.25, and then for this panel I have a white panel. It's trimmed at 4 inches by 5.25. I cut some strips of the gold cardstock and I lined it, so that way when I put my main card panel on top of that glittery card strip, you'll see the glitter pop from the sides. And then I will take this panel and then mat it on my main card base, which is the burnt orange at 4.25 by 5.5. So there's just a lot of layers here, there's a lot of dimension, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think if I wanted to add more dimension, I would use foam tape, but I was happy enough just to use the double-sided adhesive. I couldn't stop here and I wanted to add a little bit more glitter, so I pulled out the Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. I just took it and covered up all the letters, so you'll get the glitter from the words, and then you'll also get the sheen from the background, and then the glitter from the paper and the pops of gold that are on this card. Ended up really happy with this card, so I hope you enjoyed it too, and it gave you ideas to stretch your stamps, especially if you have this recipe card maker, and you can use it in so many different ways. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys next time for another one. Bye!